All right, welcome to flowing video number 3. Have your flowing utensils ready to go and listen carefully to the following 1AC. Contention 1 is justification, subpoint A. Sales are increasing now. This is from Alan Ibrahim in 17. The U.S. Department of State has notified Congress of a $1.3 billion arms deal to Taiwan, the first sale to the self-governing island under the administration of President Donald Trump. The sale includes technical support for an early warning radar system, torpedoes, anti-radiation missiles, and missile components. Subpoint B. This is angering Beijing due to sovereignty concerns. This is by Ellen Ibrahim in 17. These sales primarily represent upgrades to existing defense capabilities aimed at converting current legacy systems from analog to digital, said a U.S. government official who was asked not to be identified by name in an email. The move is sure to displease Beijing, which views Taiwan as an inviolable part of its own territory and views such sales as an infringement upon Chinese sovereignty. In the 1982 joint communique with China, the United States stated its intention gradually to reduce its sale of arms to Taiwan, leading over a period of time to a final resolution. Thus, my partner and I offer the following comparatively advantageous plan text. The United States federal government should substantially reduce direct commercial sales and/or foreign military sales of arms to Taiwan. Specifically, no new sales of military equipment will be authorized. Contention 2 is solvency, subpoint A. Abandoning Taiwan is the only way to assure China. This is by Gomez in 16. The final policy option would do away with America's commitment to Taiwan's defense on the grounds that military intervention to preserve the island's de facto independence has become too costly and dangerous for the United States. Stepping down from the commitment to come to Taiwan's rescue would be a major change in U.S. policy. However, other factors unrelated to the U.S. commitment would still make the use of force unattractive for Beijing. Taiwan would therefore not be defenseless or subject to imminent Chinese attack if the United States chose this policy option. Contention 3 is our first advantage, subpoint A. China views arms sales as offensive. This is by Gomez in 16. This paper outlines 3 broad policy options for the United States: shoring up the defense commitment by restoring military superiority over China, sustaining a minimum level of military advantage over China, or stepping down from the commitment to use military force to maintain Taiwan's de facto independence. It concludes that the United States should step down from the defense commitment eventually, ideally through an incremental and reciprocal process with China that would draw concessions from Beijing. In the long term, the U.S. security commitment to Taiwan is neither beneficial nor advantageous for the United States. Taiwan will have to take responsibility for its own defense. Subpoint B. China is responding with an arms race that the U.S. is losing. This is by Gomez in 16. 2 additional developments will challenge the cross-strait peace. First, the period of rapprochement that has characterized cross-strait relations since 2008 has ended. The former Taiwanese president, Mao Ying-jeou, championed cross-strait cooperation and economic linkages that brought a welcome sense of calm after the tumultuous legislative elections revealed popular dissatisfaction with Mao's policies and a weakening economy. President Tsai Ing-wen pledged to maintain peace, but her unwillingness to declare support for the 1992 consensus, simply interpreted as the One China, Different Interpretations, caused Beijing to suspend communication between the Taiwan Affairs Office and Taipei's equivalent, the Mainland Affairs Council. Events since the ejection of President Tsai indicate that the relationship between Taiwan and China will be more confrontational than the relationship during the Ma administration. Subpoint C. A confrontation over the issue is imminent. This is by Panda in 19. The United States and China appear to be heading toward a major confrontation over the possible sale of American fighters to Taiwan. Last week, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen confirmed that the country's Ministry of Defense has submitted a formal request to Washington, D.C. to purchase F-16 Viper fighters. Tsai said the decision to make the request was supported by a review of Taiwan's defense needs. Subpoint D. The odds of escalation are high. This is by Talmadge in 19. Dennis Blair's letter reflects the conventional wisdom about a potential U.S.-Chinese war. Virtual certainty that if the United States picked the right set of targets, China would understand that the war was limited and nuclear weapons would be irrelevant. Everyone should hope that Blair is right, but amid the fog and suspicion of war, China's views of both U.S. intentions and nuclear deterrence could change radically. Were a U.S. campaign to erode significant components of China's deterrent capability, Chinese leaders would conclude, reluctantly, that limited escalation, such as a demonstration strike at sea, was a viable option. Contention 4 is our second advantage. Subpoint A. Recent meetings have created the potential for a relations reset. This is by Hui in 17. The two countries reached an important consensus when President Xi Jinping and Trump met in Florida in April. They have implemented the 100-day economic plan and decided to start a year-long action plan for economic cooperation. Subpoint B. Arms sales undermine this momentum. This is by Hui in 17. But the U.S. arms sales to Taiwan risk compromising the consensus reached between the two sides and to undermine their mutual efforts to deepen cooperation on both bilateral and multilateral fronts. Subpoint C. They are a uniquely intractable issue because they concern core Chinese interests. This is by Hui in 17. But the U.S. should be warned that China brooks no interference in the Taiwan question, and any provocation over the issue will erode the mutual political trust between Washington and Beijing, even shake the foundation of Sino-U.S. relations. Subpoint D. Poor relations cause China to derail progress in North Korea. This is by Dunn in 19. Those ties present a real problem for the United States as Trump tries to broker an agreement to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. The current approach of heavy sanctions on Kim, for example, depends on cooperation from China in restricting cross-border trade. Likewise, cutting the dictatorship's access to nuclear technology also depend on enforcement from Beijing. Indeed, Chinese scientists, those studies and papers co-authored by North Korean counterparts, were recently implicated in sharing sensitive technology. And subpoint E. Good relations, however, enable contingency planning for North Korean collapse. This is by Gentile in 19. In the event of a DPRK collapse, substantial numbers of nuclear weapons and quantities of sensitive materials must be found and secured to prevent their transfer to third parties and potential use against military and civilian targets. The United States, South Korea, and China need to prepare now if they want to have a reasonable chance of accomplishing this extremely difficult mission. And with that, I am now open to cross-examination and further points of clarification.